Uber, taxi drivers of Reddit. What is your best NSFW story so far? Someone shit in my car. It looked exactly like the poop emoji. She did it through her skirt right as she was leaving the car. I didn't know at first. I drove around and kept spraying Febreze back there wondering why this smell won't go away. Then I looked back and saw she left me a farting gift. I'd be more upset, but damn it that women eats her fiber and it was a perfect turd. I respected that, but still charged her a $150 cleaning fee. I have bleach and sanitizer and paper towels for exactly this occasion. Picked up an Irish couple at a concert. The drive was an hour away. Looked back to merge into traffic and women was going to town giving her man a blowjob. I turned up the music and just let them do their thing. Another ride picked up a super drunk woman. She was getting frisky, placing her hand on my leg as I drove. Made up an excuse that I had to shift, standard. When we got to her place she asked, "Well, are you coming up?" I told her I was in a committed relationship. She says, "So?" Told her I really can't. Just then I got a ping for another trip and that was that. She was beautiful though. Picked up an Uber pool once. The first was a woman. The next stop was a man. Heard them chatting, laughing. Then it got quiet, turned around and they're making out. Guy's stop was first. The woman got out with him. I drove for one fucking weekend for Uber in Concord, New Hampshire. Pick up downtown Concord by State Capitol and the destination is not far away. We set off and I should have known by the rancid smell this clown has either finger banged his shitty asshole or he green apple splattered his pants. It was my third fare but I kept going. No one at destination. Wanted me to bring him to Keene NH, about 90 meters away, told him no. Refused to get out. I called PD came there and immediately tased him for spitting at me and cop. He exploded with shit. Shit everywhere. He was in the back seat of my Jeep and somehow shit was in my front seat. I called my wife, had it towed to a dealership. I back and forthed with Uber for almost a week before they finally relented to replace my carpet and seats because that poo and smell wasn't coming out. Quit Uber. Fuck rideshare. Got molested by a drunk woman and had to kick her and all her friends out on the side of the road. I was a taxi driver for 4 years while studying at the university. I'll never forget this guy. I drove home during a night shift. In Germany it's common to have a chat with the cab driver, sometimes customers even tell you really private shit, and this guy seemed completely normal to me. When we arrived at his house he asked me if I would like to have my dick sucked by him for 20 euros. And just to make it clear, that wasn't his price. He wanted to pay me 20 euros to suck my dick. Didn't saw that one coming. I refused respectfully. Ex-Uber driver here. Picked up 3 girls from the airport. They just came in from Miami. They were all originally from Peru and ranging from speaks English well, spoke half English to spoke almost zero English. They ask for my personal cell number so they can have me drive them places all weekend. I drive them to a couple places on Friday and Saturday, ending with driving them all to the wedding they had traveled for. On their way out of my car, the one who speaks English the best tells me that the one who spoke almost zero English thinks I'm really hot. I'm average to above average on a good day. I pick them up from the wedding reception a few hours later and bring them back to their Airbnb. The one who speaks zero English, who thinks I'm hot, hands me her phone from the back with Google Translate open and it says "Want to get a drink?" I say yes. She moves to the front seat and we keep handing the phone back and forth, speaking to each other, pick up a bottle of wine and head back to my place. One thing leads to another, we have this amazing connection, and it leads to us hooking up. I drive her back to her friends, still talking via Google Translate, she kisses me goodbye. Pick up girls from Peru through Uber, end up hooking up with one of them only communicating through Google Translate. Uber/Lyft driver here. Mostly it's horrid rancid nasty ass BO and sweat stained ass cracks on my seats pissing me off. I pick up some crusty people who smell like they not only haven't showered in 4 years but also regularly masturbate while shitting and skip wiping. A mix of the sex odor and ass glands with some wafting in of sickly uric acid. I have a good sense of smell and I fucking hate it. I was a taxi driver for 4 years while studying at the university. I'll never forget this guy I drove home during a night shift. In Germany it's common to have a chat with the cab driver, sometimes customers even tell you really private shit, and this guy seemed completely normal to me. When we arrived at his house he asked me if I would like to have my dick sucked by him for 20 euros. And just to make it clear, that wasn't his price, he wanted to pay me 20 euros to suck my dick. Didn't saw that one coming. I refused respectfully. As an Uber driver? Grown man with a Lord Farquaad haircut. As an Uber passenger? A driver who hooked up with female passengers regularly, claimed that having I want to have as many kids as possible in his driver bio turned women on to no end. Not me, but was asking my Phil this very question. He drives for Lyft. He told me that one time he was driving this nice young lady and 3 men to one destination. And being the sweet little retired Marine he is, he quietly asked her if she wanted a different location, or if she was okay. Her response is, "Oh yeah, I'll be fine, I have plenty of condoms." I just can't imagine somebody saying that to my Phil. Not a taxi driver but a roommate I had like 12 years ago was a taxi driver. A couple times drunk girls got handsy, he claimed. But otherwise he got tipped with weed often and occasionally other drugs too. I have a worst NSFW passenger story. My friend recently told me about a woman in her social circle who was sexually assaulted on an Lyft trip in the US Pacific Northwest region. This story is definitely a bit out there and made me rethink how to be safer using rideshare apps. So she got a lift home from a networking event and woke up the next morning in her own bed, sore, bruised, and with zero recollection of her evening after getting into the lift. Disoriented and confused, she tried to piece together events of the night before. She looked at her Lyft ride and saw she had been charged a couple of $100 for her ride, which should have only cost $20 or so. She called Lyft and asked about the charges. They explained it was so high because her trip had taken her on multiple stops and gone out of state. She was super confused and started to freak out as she had no recollection of the last night. She called a friend who took her to the hospital and she had a rape kit done. It tested positive for semen. She went to the police and Lyft. The Lyft driver was banned from the app but disappeared soon after, so police couldn't make an arrest. She hired a guy who suggested they reenact the trip she took, according to the records Lyft had of her multi-state trip. Apparently, this triggered her memory and allowed her to remember being drugged and violently gang-raped by multiple groups of men and her driver repeatedly. To this day the driver hasn't been caught and Lyft did little but refund her for the ride. I was pretty shocked and horrified by this story. I ride Lyft and Uber pretty regularly. Going forward, I will not accept food or drink that some drivers offer, no matter the gender of the driver. You never know if they've tampered with the food, you can easily make things look sealed, or if they're working a side gig at the same time. Really fucking scary how far this can go. Had a bachelorette party of 7 get in even though my vehicle could seat 6. 2 of the women, who were all super drunk, keep commenting how hot I am. I'm average or maybe slightly above average on a good day, and they get all the women to agree to a 7 time with me and let the bride-to-be watch. I turned them down for 2 reasons. 1, I would never cheat on anyone, much less my wife, who is one of the most amazing people I have ever met, and 2, they were all wasted and I was obviously sober, so it wouldn't have been very ethical. Someday I might regret it because one of them was possibly the hottest woman I have ever seen in person and the rest were above average as well. But at least they all whipped their tits out the rest of the ride home as respect for my commitment to my wife. They knew I had a dashcam too that recorded inside and outside the vehicle. Definitely saved that video. Well, I am not a driver but a rider from Pakistan. This one time I booked my Uber, sat in it and the driver started the ride. I sat on the passenger seat, since it is quite normal here to sit alongside driver. So he started the ride and just 10 minutes into the ride, his phone rang. He picked up and started talking in code language. I grew suspicious. But soon he started to yell and like cry, and started saying the person had died. I hit him and he died. No one was there, so picked him up and put him into the backseat of the car. I looked back and holy shit, there was actually a guy lying, covered in some white sheet with stains of fresh blood all over, on the back seat. I started feeling very shaky. Trembling all over, I asked him to stop in a really shaky voice, and he said he cannot do that, he will do it in some area where he will not be seen. I totally panicked and started to take control of the wheel to push him to stop. After few seconds of resistance, he stopped the car and started laughing, and said, "Sir, it was a prank, we are YouTubers and we do pranks. Man, fuck with your pranks." We had a 20-something girl who would call for a cab every Sunday night around 2 a.m. to have beer sent to her house, and whichever driver that brought the beer would receive a blowjob. We could all hear everything the dispatcher said to any driver, but not what the driver said in response. When he told us she called, he'd ask who wanted the run. It took about 1 microsecond for him to say, "Okay, you got the job." I told this story to the woman I was living with at the time, and she didn't find it as amusing as I did. The next thing I know, I'm working days. The joke was on her though. That lady called in the daytime too, almost entirely to get rides to the jail to visit boyfriends. All the guys she knew either were currently in jail or possibly in jail because of her. I brought her back home one day and she said the money is in the house. I followed her to the front door but didn't cross the doorway. We were warned to avoid going into girls' homes. While standing there, she grabs a stack of Polaroids of her having sex with various guys from the counter and tells me to look them over, and went into another room to get the money. I do. There are every possible positions and some had more than one guy involved. While doing this, she comes back wearing just panties and snuggles up under my arm. She give me a brief description of how each encounter was for her. This guy was huge. These guys were brothers and so on. I panic and bolt back to my cab. She follows and says I forgot the fare. She pays and I leave. I take her to various places over the next year about a dozen times, and now my picture is not in that pile. Picked up 2 dudes at some house party. They keep talking about how much amphetamines were at that party. They are both thirsty as fuck, and one of them just grabs my water bottle and downs it all in one big swig. They are both also horny as fuck, and keep asking where the good after parties with girls are. Now, I know exactly where these parties are. I have been dropping people off all night, but I can't tell that to these high morons. So I drive them around on their instruction, looking for a party they can get into. I am supposed to wait while they go inside, in case they want to try someplace else. I'm not interested in waiting with the meter running. There is a fair chance these morons won't come out and pay. So we pay of the fare, and start a new fare when they change their mind about this party. We hit up several parties this way, cashing out fares multiple times before these morons find a party that meet their specifications. After all is said and done, they paid about $120, 1,100 Norwegian kroner, to find a shitty party at 3 a.m. and drink my Fuken water bottle.